Hello there, and welcome to the Mindful Messenger Show brought to you by the Liberty Beacon Media Project. My name is Amanda Johnson, and today we are talking to Peggy Ricks about mindful image and connection. Peggy Ricks was inspired to create a business as a certified image and color consultant after earning her home economics degree from Chapman University. For many years, assisting women and men to recognize and understand their own individual power by dressing within a particular color palette was gratifying. In 2015, Peggy and her husband moved to Brea in order to be closer to their children and their first grandchild. Very exciting times. Peggy soon recognized her passion and joy was to be a hands-on Nannie and decided to devote her time to her beloved grandson. Although she loved her image and consulting business, recreating herself in a new community and county would require a lot of time, effort, and energy, and she made the decision to give all those precious resources to her beloved grandchild. Having made that decision, Peggy was also directed to a wellness center in Santa Ana where her knowledge of angels and archangels was nurtured and expanded, reinforcing the reality that she's on her own personal and very spiritual journey. Welcome, Peggy.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi. I'm so excited to have you here today. So,
I feel honored to be asked.
oh my gosh, you were such an important part of my journey, part of the joy of doing this show is, we've had all of these conversations over the years about all different things with all different experts. And so it's like we get to have these conversations and let people listen in, and they get to benefit from your wisdom and some of the hard-earned lessons that we've both learned, right?
Absolutely.
And the truth is that I don't know where I'd be without you. I definitely would not be sporting flowers on my shirt.
I'm so proud of you.
No, because in the first few years of my business, I had the opportunity to work with someone who was, really, really famous and powerful, and she invited me to her stage, and I remember calling you up and being like, Peggy, I need you to take me shopping. I don't know what to wear. I don't know. And I cannot believe the compliments that I got and what I learned about myself and how easy it made all the shopping that I've done since.
And look at you now.
And I'm sporting flowers. And we'll talk about that because the flowers took a good, when did we do that? 2009? So it took a good 8, 9, almost 10 years.
It's taken a while, but you're here.
So, initially we connected through Ursula's community, which was, such a beautiful place to be in. And then we developed our own friendship, and then you came to a retreat to work on a book idea for your image consulting business. So tell me about that. What were you thinking about all of that, writing a book for these people, and what were you going to put in there?
Well, I wanted to have it be a book that was easy to understand, very relatable, something that anyone reading it for the first time would have aha moments about how it is to be dressing within a certain color palette. But it isn't just the color palette. You have to also understand your fashion personality. And that's where you and I have had so much fun, because your fashion personality and my fashion personality, even though we're the same season, aren't really the same ones. And so it's an interesting journey to assist people who you think, oh, but this is so cute on you. This would be so wonderful on you. Look at the color, look at your eyes, look at your skin tones. But then realizing that just because those things are very important factors, if the item itself is not that person's comfort zone, then you're losing them, period. So that's where there are different fashion personalities. There are 5 of them that when a woman or a man understands what that is, then it opens up the world to them. So I was wanting to put all of that down on paper and have them understand how it's not a minefield that you're walking through, but it is something you need to understand. And then once you have that understanding, it's easy peasy. You know exactly what you want when you go shopping, and you know what it is that makes you feel good. And that's the important part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, some things that you think make you feel good don't really make you look very good. So,
Right.
so let's use me as a really good example. So, my mother-in-law used to say when we were shopping, she'd say, "Could you get something besides non-colors?" And that's basically where I was at when I met you, right?
Yes.
And so when you're talking about personality, like that was reflective of the, 80 or 90% of my personality. I was just getting ready to start putting myself out on stage and start being visible. But there was, all of this old crap that I was working through at the same time, trying to get myself to the place where I felt comfortable. Like definitely not about to wear red in 2009.
And look at you. Look at you. It's one of your power colors.
I love this color now. And you know what's funny too is if you look, I found a business card from many moons ago the other day while I was cleaning, and it was this really light pink. And I held it up and I thought, man, remember when I was a pink personality?
And how did that work?
You know what? It worked for me at that time, right? Because that's kind of it. I feel like it kind of matched the energy. I wasn't ready to be intense.
Right. But you weren't in the basics. You at least were getting into a color. So you were slowly evolving into that.
Exactly. And so, we go out and we start having fun shopping. First of all, first time I've ever had fun in my life shopping. Before this horrible nightmare, if you can find an image consultant like Peggy, do it, because it turned something that was like a horrible nightmare for me into something that was so fun, because the trick was that she knew what would look good on me. And so I didn't try anything on that made me look terrible.
And it's true, everything. So you had to stand there and decide, I can't take all of this, darn it. So which ones, twos, threes can I actually take and say goodbye to these other fabulous things?
Yeah. Yeah. And it was the color, and you knew like what cuts would look good on me, because, I've always liked the fashion that goes on the cute straight girls, but that is not this body.
I'll never forget, though, a shopping day we had where we always go to one particular store. And this particular time I said, have you ever been to this store? And you said, no, I haven't. I said, well, let's get outside of the box and let's go down there. And which happens to be one of my most favorite stores in the world. So we went in there, and my typical thing with you is I'll go to a rack and I'll hold something up, and I tell you, I'm not emotionally attached to this. Say yes or no. If you don't like it, we'll put it back. If you do like it, we'll put it on the arm, and we're taking it in the dressing room. So remember this day? And I went in and I said, do you like this? And you said no. Okay, so we went to the next rack. Do you like this? No. And by about the fifth one, no. It's like, what is the matter? And then I looked around the store, and I remember asking you, are the colors in this store too loud? And you just said yes. And I realized that just because the brightness of the colors speak to me, to my fashion personality, even though they were your color palette, they weren't speaking to you. You were more or less shutting down on me. Remember that?
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And I said, do you want to go back to that other store? And you go, uh-huh. And we did, and we had another successful day. So that was a wonderful aha moment for me to realize I know all about this fashion personality concept, but I actually witnessed it firsthand of what it's like to take someone who really isn't wanting to be in that environment. She knows who she is, and I needed to respect that and get back to who you are, not who I would think you would want to be.
Yeah.
So that was a very fun experience.
And, I kind of think that for you, when I work with people, I can see ahead for them. I can see the book, I can see them on stage, you know, even if they're like, nah, I'm not going to coach. I'm like, yeah, you're going to coach it. Like, I can kind of see that. And so I think that you did the same thing for me when it came to my image, you know, because at the time I didn't like how I looked. I didn't like how much I weighed. I didn't like what was going on in my body. I had allergies. Remember, like, I had a lot of physical stuff going on that made me feel like I wanted to hide. And so, but you know, what about this red? What about this yellow? What about, and I was like, huh, maybe someday. And then every time we would shop, it would be like, okay, I'm willing to try on the turquoise.
And have you bought the turquoise? You've tried it on. Have you bought the turquoise?
I have. Yeah. Yeah, there's turquoise and a tiny bit of yellow in my they're flowers. And this is, you know, I thought this was fun because here, you know, we plan to have this interview today, and I'm getting ready to go on retreat this next week. And so I went to the store because I just have had that feeling of like nothing in my wardrobe really makes me happy anymore. Like there's something I've grown into something. I've grown out of this. And so I just was looking for a few pieces.
Yes.
And so on Monday, I should have taken a picture and sent it to you, but I had a cart piled up with clothes that I was going to try on. And when I looked at them before I went in, I started like picking them up to put them on the rack to take them in. I was like, all of these have flowers on them. What is happening to me? I mean, how many times did you try to get me to wear something?
Yes. Oh, I do.
I was already, I was like, no.
No.
Jeans.
Oh, very sure. Very strong. Yes.
So I love that. And I think that's important for our audience too, to know that, like, especially because there's this part about the image evolution for me of really, you know, I am supposed to be loud. My message is important, and I am supposed to be visible, and I am supposed to be heard, and but I had to build muscles for that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, there's this other piece that happens alongside with the messaging for you when you're talking about what happened for you when you went home to start writing this book. I mean,
yes. and the book just kind of, one thing about you with teaching how to write the book is you're so good with Post-it notes and the different colors of Post-it notes. And I did very well with utilizing the Post-it notes. I did keep them in business. But there was something that was just not really fitting in completely. It wasn't the concept. I mean, the color and the image concept will always be my foundation of who I am, period. But there was just something stopping me from fulfilling that topic. And now I know why.
Yeah. And that topic, like I said, you know, I think this is really important for people because, you know, we have these things that we get attached to because we're good at them and we get results with people. And like, you stepped into my life and you gave me a way of articulating my personality to the world and being as visible as I was comfortable being. Like, all of these things that we see some messengers not getting right. Do you remember the time that I called you from, I was at a training and you'd help me like really define my style. I mean, I was like, you know, jeans and boots and these cute shirts and glasses with the jacket.
Yes, adorable.
And I went back into a training room where people had paid, you know, tens of thousands of dollars to be in that training room. And I was supporting someone else, some other celebrity at that point. And I remember that I wore my suit into that room and I felt wrong all day, all day. And I couldn't, like, it was hard for me to connect with people and I just felt wrong and I couldn't understand it. And it wasn't until I went home and walked into the bathroom with the full length mirror that I was, what was I thinking? This isn't me. And so the next day I wore my own clothes, and I was training, so it was a little scary, but I wore my own and I totally killed it. It was my very first standing ovation, but for me, it was like evidence that there was that level of ownership of my personality and my style and
identification of who you are.
yeah.
And giving yourself permission to be that person.
Yeah.
And I think that's what so many people do when they're going to be speakers, or they're going to be giving classes, or even starting a profession in which they're meeting with clients. They have in their mind, well, this is what a professional woman, this is what a professional person looks like. So I need to be buttoned up, I need to be in my high-heeled shoes, and I need to have the skirt and the jacket matching, and the pearl earrings, and that's how I'm going to be getting the respect. And as you learned, you were completely out of sync. You couldn't be Amanda. You were being someone else, and who knows who that person was, and it's stifling. And not only does it not make you look as beautiful as you are from the inside out, it's also having those looking at you wondering, I'm not getting what I need to be getting from this person, because we all start kind of sort of shutting down, if you will. So it's when you recognize, this is what is best for me, this is what looks the best on my body, or this is the style that I'm the most comfortable in, as long as it's a style that is still giving a sense of professionalism. I mean,
right.
It's silly, but it's once you understand, that's the magical and such important piece of the fashion personality. Am I a classic? Am I dramatic? Am I romantic? Do I like to have bows? Can't stand to wear my hair in curls? It always has to be straight, or makeup makes me crazy, or there's a bazillion excuses and a bazillion pieces of information that really helps put us all together. But it's once we recognize what is our way of putting ourselves out the best, putting our best foot forward, and accepting that and embracing it, then that's where the self-confidence comes in. And when someone pays you a compliment, if that looks so pretty on you, you're thinking, thank you. And then to yourself, you're thinking, I know I love this stuff because it makes me feel so good, and it sounds trite, and it sounds very simplistic, but it's powerful.
No, my favorite, do you remember you were like, I want you to go to this event, and the first day I want you to wear black, and the second day I want you to wear brown? Like, because I didn't believe you.
Of course not. Well, that's okay.
I spent a lot of money on these black suits, And so I did. I wore black one day, and people were like looking at me, checking me out, but not in a good way. And they were asking me like, oh, are you tired? Are you feeling okay today? And the second day I showed up, and they were like, wow, you look like you've lost 20 pounds.
Yeah, you love that.
You're glowing. And I was like, okay, Peggy, I get it. I'm sticking with brown. Same cut of suit, I knew it was the color.
Yeah, totally.
So, and that piece of like I said, of evolving over time, like knowing when that is starting to feel like this last week, I'm ready for an upgrade. I'm ready for, I'm letting the gray grow out. Like, does that change my color palette? Does that change what I can, and I live in Portland. I'm not getting any sun.
No sun.
I mean, these are real questions.
Those are real questions. Those are real issues.
So, like, I have something that looks really good on me in Southern California. I put it on now, and I'm like, something.
Oh, really? Isn't that interesting? Because the air and the climate around you, it's so different. Mm-hmm. You don't have the bright.
My color, my complexion is changing, and then the gray has it all kind of.
Yeah.
But just changing over time. So you go home and you're working on this book, or you're trying to.
Yes.
I'm like, Amanda, I don't know why I'm stuck. And I'm like, it's okay. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. And now I know why I was stuck, because that wasn't the topic that I was supposed to be sharing with myself and with those around me. And it's been evolving into, rather than, I've always been a very visual person, which is why the color business was such a perfect thing for me. But I've also been always, my whole foundation has always been a very spiritually based person. And the spirituality piece is taking over, which has been a phenomenal awakening. And it's not based on any religious connotation. It's just a beautiful embracing of what's going on around all of us. And it all happened with, actually it all happened with having my first grandchild, with having Jacob come into the world. Because I want him to understand, I want him to have a knowledge of God and a knowledge of the angels. And talking to a little 2.5-year-old whose thought is so pure and so innocent and so precious, and just using the word angels around him, it's just, you used the word a minute ago, delicious is all I can think of. It's just so precious. We will go on walks together. The other day we went on a walk, and I gave him a little special Mickey Mouse lunchbox type thing for Christmas, and we go on walks and we find treasures around the area, and he puts his treasures in the box. And I tell him, I said, you need to also look for feathers. He doesn't know what a feather is. He's 2 years old. And I explained to him, I said, those are feathers, mean that the angels are nearby. So we're always looking for feathers. And the other day we were walking up the street, and it was one of those beautiful California days where the huge, big, puffy clouds. And I always love to see if I can see shapes in the clouds that I could recognize something. And I said to him, I said, Jacob, look how beautiful those clouds are. Just look at them. And I said, you know, see if you could, that's where angels could be too. They're all around us, but they could be up there too. He stops in the street and he goes, angels, where are you? And I said, okay, that's going in the book of how cute you are, 2.5.
That is so sweet.
It is very sweet.
And you know, I remember the conversations that we had, because you know, it wasn't easy for you to change the gears.
No, it's a difficult, it's not a subject that you really want to talk about with openness with people, because there are people, men in white coats and white jackets out there, and you don't want to take a risk. So you kind of, when you're talking, I have found when I'm talking to people in a like a Super Bowl party, for instance, I was talking to a gal who was very open and receptive, and we must have sat there for an hour nonstop, just talking, sharing about experiences that both of us have had, that there's no question that they are around us and they're supporting us and they're protecting us. And what I love knowing is that they're all around us and they're always here to want to be of any help we need, but we have to ask. And I always thought that, you know, they know when the need is there, and they're there. But the more I've read from different authors on this, it's always the same theme, that they are around us and they are here to offer us their help and to see us through situations. But because of our free will, which means we have the ability to decide which way we're going to go, what decision we're going to make, what we're going to do, they have such respect for our free will, they will not interfere, if you will, into our lives unless we ask. And to me, that's such a pure thing, that ask them and they're there. And so but it's some, like you had said, it's a conversation that it's kind of a tricky one to have, because I want to respect everyone's beliefs and have respect for everyone's ideas and concepts, but I want them too to respect me. So I have to just be careful about how this conversation goes. And if they're open to it and want to learn more, you can't shut me up. But it's a matter of just, you know, taking one step at a time and then just seeing what unfolds from.
So tell me about like the first time that you realized, because I feel like this happened shortly after you started with the book process, you know, that you started to have these interactions or
Yeah.
these knowings. And so tell me about that, because I think it's really, you're not the first to step into this idea of, I want to write a book, which is essentially a statement that you want to express more of who you are than you are currently expressing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
it happens so often that people will say yes to that energy of expansion and expression, and then it's like a quick right turn
Mm-hmm.
into something else. But that idea was what kind of pulled them into the next thing that
Right.
they were supposed to learn or supposed to express. So what was that like for you?
Well, I think the idea has always been that I'm wanting to write a book about angels, and and it's more of a, excuse me, a journal of stories that I want to give to my grandchildren. I want them to have a sense of a foundation of God and the angels. Angels are messengers of God, so they are interconnected. They're God's thoughts passing to man, so they're so connected with God. So there's a very strong spiritual quality there. So I want to document my angel experiences and have that for my grandchildren to be reading, so they too can establish an understanding and get a foundation of it. So I had an experience. This isn't as much an angelic experience as much as just an amazing one about an experience about what's really happens with our loved ones. Mm. And this was I think it was in 2010. I was having a dinner party. And it was St. Patrick's Day dinner. And my girlfriend was sitting next to me, and there was a lot of chatter, a lot of laughter going on at the table. And my friend reached over to me and she said, you know your mother is here and she's loving this party. I said, what? My mother had passed 5 years earlier. Mm. I said, what? And she said, and she says, your mother is on the landing and she's just loving the laughter. And I whirled my head around and looked on the landing as if I would be seeing her. And Lori says, well, you can't see her, but she's here. Well, I wanted to know a lot more, but obviously with a table full of other people, we decided we'll continue this conversation tomorrow. So anyway, Lori and I met, and I said, what were you talking about? And she said, your mother is around you all the time. And I said, how do you know that? And she said, because she told me. I said, well, why does she tell you and not me? And she said, she probably has tried and you haven't heard her. And she said, she probably went around the table and bumped into this person. No, can't talk to him. Nope, can't talk to her. Nope. And then went around the whole table. And she says, and then she came to me and she was able to get through to me. And so she said, she is here all the time. And she just wants you to know that she's happy and she loves that you're so happy. So she went on later and she says, do you remember when a few months ago when I was over here? And do you remember the conversation we had in your kitchen? And that's all she said. And I vividly remembered the conversation because it was so odd. And I said, yes. And she says, tell me what you remember. I said, well, I was at the kitchen sink washing a platter and you were at the other side of the kitchen and you said to me, tell me about this piece of furniture. And I turned around and you were looking at a baker's rack that was in the breakfast room. And I said, and she says, do you remember what you said to me? And I said, yes. I said, that was my mom's and I treasure it. And she just smiles and she said, right. Your mother was right behind me and she told me to ask you about that. And she loved your answer. Hmm. So that was quite an awakening for me to know that our loved ones are not gone forever, but they're just on the other side of a veil, and we can't see them because our senses are what are so dull. But they can see us, they can help us, they can be there for us. So that's what started my wanting to know more and more and more about what this body, this flesh, this 80 plus years, hopefully, that I'm going to be on this earth. And then that's it. I mean, there's got to be more than what this life experience is. And I want to know what that is. So that's what has been my goal and desire in following on this journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it wasn't too long after that you started to have conversations about, I don't know if I want to continue my business, and I don't know if I want to, I mean, you were.
Well, that was when moving out here 3 years ago is when it was. It's like, I loved it when I did it in the Inland Empire. It fed me. But now I'm kind of going into a different direction. I've got this precious grandchild, and these other thoughts and things are whirling around my head, and I'm going to listen and see what that is. And then I read something where it says, when the student is ready, the teacher shows up. And that's what's been happening, is I've just been meeting with people and taking classes and reading books and finding authors that just nurture and speak to me in ways that I'm wanting to have, and then able to retain it. That's the nice thing at this old age, is retaining it too.
Was it true that you had to completely let go of the business and the image stuff before all of that other stuff showed up for you?
Yeah, it's like I had to make room for it. And once I made the decision that that was then, and this is now, then the now has just been flooding my thought, just and in such phenomenal ways. And I took a class in last year. I found this wellness center in Santa Ana, and you could take, and I went every Thursday night and met with just wonderful people, and meeting classmates. And it's like, we're all in this room, and we're all in this together. We're learning about these things that are a little bit different and a little bit really out of the box, but it was like a safety net, a safety room of people where we had this like kinship of thinking. And it was going there and learning of all of these subjects, which were fascinating. It's talking and learning about what are these psychic abilities. And you think of psychics, and you think of someone with a glass ball and having a cape on, and I actually, just voodoo type of things. And then listening to this woman who was the teacher, who is a psychic, and she was so full of love and kindness and depth. And I loved being shown that just because you have this title of being this psychic, it doesn't mean that you are a weird, you're not strange, just to put it in simple terms. And I could see so much, I knew that wasn't something I was really wanting to go after, do much of, but I loved learning all the things that surrounded it. And that was where the angel messages started coming in. I thought, what I'm really more interested in than anything with this is learning more about angels. And so once I said yes to that, that's when all of the different ideas started coming in. The different books started showing up, and it's just been a path that I cherish. I just hold it to my heart. I just absolutely cherish it, and I've never felt so centered
Mm.
and so confident of who I am. And it's all based on kindness. And it's like it's amazing what comes back in multitude forms just by having an angelic thought process.
Mm. Share an example of that. Like how does this, because a lot of my intention for this show is one, to let people know that they're definitely not alone on this messenger journey, that there are people like you and so many of my other guests who are like, well, I thought I was doing this, and then this showed up and it's super awesome and I'm sticking to it for now. Like to show people that this is what the real journey looks like. It's not just the end game that you see on these big stages or on television, or the journey is really important. And the more that we hear from people like you who've had to think out of the box, listen to messages from your friends, let go of things that once made you feel super excited and on purpose, like those are all real parts of everyone's journey. But if they don't know that, then it's just stress. It's just meltdown after meltdown.
Right. I think it's it's letting go of what it is that you think you should be doing, and it's sitting back and listening. And it's when you hear a message 3 times in a short period of time, that is an angel message coming to you to do whatever that was. And I've really been focusing and really trying to hone my listening skills on hearing the messages, and not necessarily wait for 3 times, but go for it. There was a situation the other day where with Jacob, where we had been out doing our little walk, and we came back. It was a beautiful late winter day here in California. It was 90 degrees. I'm laughing at that. And we were sitting in the backyard, and I was reading one of my newest books, and he was playing in his little sandbox, and we were just enjoying the calmness of the time of day. And then the next thing I saw, he had walked over to this trench area that Grandpa is doing an irrigation project, and he was sitting in the trench he was sitting on the edge of the trench, and the trench is like 12 inches. It's not a big, huge trench. But for this little boy, it is. He was sitting there, and he had his little shovel, and he was hitting the mountain of dirt right in front of him with his shovel. And I was reading my book, and I just glanced up, and I said, Jacob, why don't you move over a little bit, sweetie? Don't be right there. Just move over a little bit. And I wanted to say move over 2 feet, but I knew he wouldn't understand me. So I said, just move over a little bit. And he got up and he moved. And seconds after his moving, an avalanche of dirt came crashing down right where he had been sitting. Mm. The angel message to me was, ordinarily, I would say to him, why don't you move? And I would have to say it 3, 4, or 5 times before this little 2-year-old actually does it. This time I said, why don't you move? Number 1, I looked up and saw that he should move. I wasn't engrossed in my book. Number 2, I said, why don't you move? And he moved obediently, and then suddenly the dirt fell. And I immediately just said, thank you, thank you, thank you for protecting that precious child. And I know that was an angelic presence protecting him. And then when you have an experience like that, the most important thing to do is to express gratitude, is to thank them for helping. And then if they're like, oh, you liked that. Just wait till you see what I can do next. So you end up having a really fun, very precious, innocent, and very powerful relationship with them.
Yeah. And I don't know how many times I've been in sessions with different types of practitioners over the years, and like the loud messages. So you have a lot of help over here, but you're not asking for help. Like, why are you trying to do this all by yourself? They're all kind of frustrated with you because they could do this a lot more
Right.
quickly and easily and
Yes.
painlessly for you,
Yes.
you know. But it is really about developing that skill of listening and paying attention.
And asking.
Mhm.
Asking for the help, and then do that. Then listen and pay attention to what they are showing you. And you can ask them, can I have a sign? That happened to me the other day also. Our egos are always wanting us to second guess and to make us think that we're not as good as we are, and that you are a little bit loopy and you're not really doing and seeing what you think you are. And so it's very typical for us to say, can you give me a sign? If I could just have a sign that you really do exist and that you really are here. And they are more than willing to give you the sign. But again, you have to observe the sign. You have to know, hello, knock, knock, hello. And so I was doing the typical, just give me a sign. And I went on errands, came home, walked in the door. Nobody was home during the day. And I walked in the door and said hello to my 3 little furry friends and did what I usually do, took my phone out of my purse and put my purse where it was. And I started to walk down the hall. Excuse me. And in front of me was the cabinet. I have some water here, sorry.
It's okay.
I wonder why they don't want me to tell the story. So I was walking down the hall, and in front of me, I just had to stop and stare at what I had seen. And it was a cabinet door in front of me that was standing wide open. And ordinarily, that wouldn't be a big deal. So the door's open, go close the door. Well, with this particular cabinet, it's an old antique cabinet, and it has a skeleton key that keeps the cupboard closed. And it will not open unless you turn the key and pull. So having this door wide open was something that was very, very odd. And when I went up and closed it, I closed it and turned the key, and I shook it and tried to see, can this door open on its own? It's next to impossible. And at first I thought, was there an intruder? Was there somebody who was here? So I did my my human thing and walked around the house and went looking to see what I could find, and everything was fine. And I went and I sat down on the couch and I was thinking about what was that? And then it was like, oh, you asked for a sign. How much more visual, how much more obvious can they make it than to open something that can't open without the skeleton key turning it and saying, here, what more do you want to see? And I just started laughing to myself, and I probably out loud too. I just said, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I just got this sense of warmth and sense of well-being, which is another sign that they are hearing you when you physically feel this, just this all is well with the world kind of feeling.
That's awesome.
It was very precious.
Yeah, I love that. So then how do you, because you said you're feeling more grounded and centered, and then you have ever maybe, what do you do to stay in that place? Like what are some of the things that you do regularly that help you to stay connected?
Well, I start every day with what I call my protective work. And it's every single morning without fail. After I've had my coffee and sit and watch the news, what have you. Before I start my day, I hate to even admit this because this is woo-woo, but I have oracle cards. Mm-hmm. And these oracle cards are powerful. One is called Messages from the Angels. One is called What is Your Life Purpose? And the other has to do with fairies. And there's another story with that, that pertains to that. Excuse me. And the oracle cards, you pick a card from each deck, and that card will tell you what you're needing to hear that day. And it's often very profound of what is going on in my life at that particular moment. So I love to hold on to those and to the messages that come from that. Suggestions will come to me sometimes, or they were prior to my giving myself permission to stay on this angelic path. That what is your life purpose, Peggy? What is it that you're doing? If you're not going to be doing your image consulting, if you're not going to be productive in that, what is it you're going to be doing? You aren't, you're still here on this earth. You still need to be achieving. You still need to be productive. And I was kicking myself around the block mentally that I need to be being productive. And then one of the books that I read said, one's life purpose doesn't have anything to do with a business or a career. One's life purpose is about sustainable happiness. Mm. And I got chills when I read sustainable happiness. And I thought, what is it that gives me sustainable happiness? It's being around these precious grandchildren. And it's learning about this angelic realm. And once I gave myself permission to say, that is who I am, and that is what I'm wanting to be, then all of the pressure of having to be achieving and being productive and being an example to my family of I'm still doing things, it just subsided and went away. And that's when I started feeling so centered as to this is what my life purpose is. And I don't have to do the planning. I don't have to do the outlining of what I need to be doing. I don't have to do the goal setting. It's just be and let God, let the angels, let whatever is surrounding me speak so that I can then hear them. And then when I hear them, then that's when the action takes place.
It's amazing. It's amazing how often I hear this bit about how, and it's my own story too. I don't know why it surprises me, right? It like attracts like of, go out there and save the world. Like go out there and help these people with this message and save them from looking horrible on stage and creating an image and brand that would be horrible for, like all of these things that propel us forward. But the end game is always the being. It's always the just get connected and listen and flow with the messages that are,
Being in the flow is huge. And we've heard that from Ursula forever. And when you experience being in the flow, which is where I feel I am right now, it's like nothing else matters. Then when you're saying, when you got to get the message out there and help these people and be so powerful as far as making sure that they look good on stage, and whether it's with their message or whether it's with their appearance, that's becoming more of our ego speaking, our humanity, our human speaking. We're not just sitting back and listening to the message of what is it that I am supposed to be doing. And it is just being and being quiet. And the message is always going to be a gentle one. And it's always based on kindness and on loving. And that's what I love about this angelic realm, is how loving they are. And that's how they want us to be with each other. Well, good grief. I think the world needs that too, more than anything else, more than our power of helping people be this way, be that way on stage. Just be a safe place in the storm for people. What could be more gratifying and what could be more needed?
Mm-hmm. Everyone take a deep breath. good. It's good. It's so good. Well, our time is just about up. So I have to ask you these rapid fire questions.
You
Are you
have to.
ready? Well, it's important to me that we share all of the good resources that we have, or our favorite ones. So for you, what was the first book or message that really changed your life, set you on this path?
One that people are probably very familiar with, but I cannot praise it enough, is Louise Hay, and You Can Heal Your Life.
That was my first book.
Was it? And it's funny, I refer to it all the time with whatever issue is going on.
Yeah.
And when I first got the book, I just more or less read the back part of, oh, my foot hurts or my ear hurts or this, that, or that. And you go and you look at that page. And it was just recently where I read the first 3/4 of the book, which was her story, which was a very interesting story. I was shaking my head at myself, but what the heck? Why didn't you read that as well? But that book, to me, it's a reference book on life.
Yeah, that was an angel move on my part too, because
Yeah.
I remember I was in so much pain, and I walked into a bookstore and I was like, I just need help. I don't even know where to look. I mean, I didn't even know about the self-improvement, the self-empowerment section. Self what? Like, I didn't have anything like that before. And I literally was walking past a bookshelf, and that book fell off.
Did it really?
In front of me. And I at least knew enough that was a sign that I didn't take it.
This must be the one. Yeah.
And it changed everything. It made me feel like I wasn't alone. It made me understand where all of the pain was coming from. And it gave me the beginning tools that I needed to start changing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's just shifting from being impressed with whatever the human picture is and the negative piece, and then just shifting it and making it an affirmation of, I hate to use the word positive, because then you think, oh, positive thinking kind of thing. But that is the foundation of it. Staying in the darkness and staying in the problem gets you nowhere. But this lifts you up and out of what the problem is into what the real reality is. And if you can hold on and embrace that real reality, then that's what actually is going to come into your experience.
Yeah. So then what is your favorite book and why?
Well, on this particular journey I'm on now, my favorite all time, whether it's business or personal, is Jack Canfield's Success Principles. I just love that book. And when I read that and I've read it a couple of times, different parts of it, because it takes you into a business dynamic of how to look at business and yourself as a business person. But then it also has so many personal pieces involved about you and what makes you tick, and how you react to things, how you express yourself, how you project yourself on all levels of life. So I've always loved that book. But currently, my favorite is Angels of Abundance by Doreen Virtue. And it's a step-by-step. She puts 11 messages in there, and each 11 chapters, and each chapter is a message of how you can manifest abundance, whatever abundance looks like, whether it's financial, whether it's abundance in happiness, or abundance in solving family relationships, whatever. And it's just a very, very precious book.
Check that one out.
Yeah, it's wonderful, and it's very small. It's a little square. It's like 4 inches square, so it's not intimidating.
Oh, good.
It's powerfully packed with all kinds of pearls.
Those are the best books. People always ask me, how long does this book need to be? And I'm like, you just need to get the job done. As soon as you get the job done.
Message out. Yeah.
So then, who is your favorite messenger and why?
It's back to right now. It's Doreen Virtue, and it's because she has written so many. She's also doing books with her 2 sons, and it's fun to get the masculine influence, the masculine perspective of this spirituality, this metaphysical realm. And she's Doreen, and then her sons are Charles and I think Grant Virtue, and all three of them, I'm so amazed, all three of them are authors. They're all published. They're very good.
Amazing. It runs in the family.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And what is the best way for people to connect with you if they're interested?
I would say through email, and I'll give that to you. It's pegred, PEGGRED at AOL. And I kind of shudder having to say AOL because I know in the business realm it shouldn't be an AOL account, but I'm not in the business realm anymore.
That's right. Own it, girl. Own it.
Embracing yourself.
Exactly. And it's just more and more of that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Flowers and all, Peggy.
Just let it go.
I just want to thank you for being not just on this show today and sharing your wisdom and your story and your insight, but for being who you have been in my life and who you are and helping me. It's tremendous. You were one of those angels for me. So
you're so precious. Thank you. Well, I feel the same about you. Look what you do for everyone else. Look at all the hearts that you touch and the empowerment that you personally give to all of these people that don't know where to begin. And you make it just so simple. You're very annoying, but you make it very simple. You hold our hand to the flame, and then we rise above the ashes.
I can get annoying, I know. That's when I know I'm doing something, because all of my best guides and teachers have really gotten under my skin.
So then you know you're doing your job.
Like, oh, we're getting somewhere.
Yay.
Awesome. Now I tell people that at the beginning. At some point during this, you're not going to like me, and it's.
But that's okay. You're going to work very hard to make that happen. And that's going to be an aha moment when that happens.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. This has just been so fun.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And thank you, listeners, for joining us. I'm always happy to hear from you and to hear what you're taking away from today's conversation. And I also want to thank our sponsor, sitechisel.com. For audience members who are looking to create a beautiful website, you should see the one they're working on for me right now. You guys get a 10% discount just because you're being referred by me. So use the code MINDFUL10 and to get your code and enjoy. So that's a wrap for today. Thank you.
Thank you.